from down talking conservatives to down talking Democrats, let's get into our final segment. The Democrats losing big during this election offseason.
Which, yes, there was an election this year, but
Several elections,
they
actually.
were actually mostly local elections. So don't worry, you don't have to worry about um, the big Senate and House elections until 2022, but these were still really big.
Yeah, so the main thing is that they lost it. So Glenn Youngkin, a Republican in Virginia, upset Terry McAuliffe in Virginia, which was huge because Biden kind of comfortably won Virginia.
I think it was like a 10% lead.
Yeah, he had a 10% lead on Trump back in the 2020 election, which is huge. From what I'm hearing, Phil Murray barely beat out Jack. I believe his name is Jack Ciattarelli. I I apologize if I mispronounced the name.
Which that was the Democrat, right?
Jack Ciattarelli was the Republican.
Or the Democrat won.
Yeah, Phil Murray was the Democrat, and he barely won it, the governorship in New Jersey against Jack Ciattarelli. Once again, I apologize if I butchered that name. We had what's it called? We had the socialists lose in India. I believe her name is India Jones.
India something.
India Jones or India something lose in Buffalo. She lost the mayoral candidateship to,
She lost to a write-in candidate.
mind you, it was a write-in candidate, but it was a write-in candidate that had previously already ran.
And no, they both ran in the primaries,
Yeah.
and then he lost, came in for the general as a write-in, and still somehow came out with a win.
Yeah, and he's a Democrat, right?
Yeah, he's a Democrat.
Yeah, but she was a more progressive Democrat, and she lost.
Because she was an out and about socialist.
Yeah,
like, she was very open about that.
Yeah, she's not about socialists, and she lost. We also had, while this wasn't necessarily a Democratic Party thing, this was still a huge loss for progressives. The Minneapolis population did not vote to fully defund the police and replace it with a general like action committee of sorts.
Which I do want to talk extensively about that, but I more want to dive into the consequences of the Virginia election.
Yeah. And overall, Democrats are not seeing the big wins that they were expecting to coast along through this offseason into 2022. The Democratic strategy was that after winning in 2020, they were going to take over the House and the Senate, which they barely accomplished, and then they were going to coast. They were going to use the momentum of that win to mop up all these small elections in the offseason. Then going into 2022, on the heels of Biden having a successful first half of his presidency, they were going to sweep the House and the Senate. That plan immediately ran into the ground election night when we saw that they did not win as much as they did in the House as they needed to. They lost seats, and how they barely lost the Senate and only won it after the Georgia runoffs with Warnock and Ossoff.
I mean, we literally waited almost a month for that to take place, right?
Yeah, we waited 2 months because that happened in January of 2021.
Oh my god, that was... Yeah, that did... Oh my god.
Yeah, January 4th. And that was only to tie the Senate, not even get a majority, a tie with Kamala Harris being the VP being able to be a tiebreaker. But that's not a definitive win. And so that was clearly showing that the plan didn't work. And yet here we are, nearing the end of 2021, and the Democrats think they can coast along, and they're getting smacked up left and right by Republicans.
There's an obvious flaw to that strategy, and that happened right as Biden announced his departure from, was it Afghanistan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did depart from Afghanistan.
And that was an absolute massive failure because so mmany people on our side just were murdered, and it caused so many casualties and so many problems.
And so here,
because that was his big dip in his approval ratings, and the reason I say all of that is because they were expecting to use his approval in a successful first half of his term to guide these election wins, and that just did not happen at all.
So I actually have a different perspective. While yes, that was a dip in his approval ratings. One, the deal to move out of Afghanistan was already done by Trump
I,
with the
I, I,
Taliban.
I don't blame him for that. I'm
Yeah,
saying like he did. I don't blame him for that. I blame him for not um, changing his approval ratings. That's what I'm
yeah.
harping on.
But to go on that track, I was gonna say I don't really think that's the main issue as to why this happened. I think the real issue is that the Democratic Party laid too into Biden, thinking that Biden was the reason voters were coming out. Wrong.
No, the reason voters came out is because they didn't want Trump in.
Biden was a bulwark against Trump. People voted for Biden because they wanted Trump not to win. It wasn't the fact that Biden is a charismatic leader that was leading the Democrats into a golden age. He was someone that was the next best thing besides fascism.
To fix what you were saying, they didn't vote for Biden. They voted against Trump. And this is such a common saying, but this has to be said because Democrats do not seem to understand this
They
whatsoever.
have completely deluded themselves into this idea that Trump was so bad that it affected the rest of the Republican Party. No, that is not what happened.
No, Republicans just fell in line.
Like, here's the thing.
They were completely behind everything that he stood for because it was beneficial to them.
Here's the thing that I feel Democrats have really forgotten. Had COVID not happened, Trump would have been reelected easy.
Oh, for sure.
They completely have forgotten the fact that the reason why Trump won in the first place is he played into the WASP existential fear about whiteness becoming a minority, but he also was able to allow for apathy to be pervasive amongst white middle class millennials. There's a lot of political apathy at this point towards from that demographic, and Trump, he allows it to happen because he's such a terrible and divisive figure. Many people that would tune into politics felt that they had to turn away from it because it became too divisive for them. And so the only reason that these people even came out to vote come 2020 was because the situation became so awful thanks to COVID being so bad and universally affecting everyone's lives that people decided that they would vote Biden in just to make sure that Trump didn't win. And the writing was on the wall from that moment that they couldn't use that momentum because even in the general, you had Trump losing in a lot of areas that other Republicans were winning in at the lower levels, really indicating that it wasn't Biden was getting a swell of support for the Democrats, but Trump was so bad that Republicans would sooner vote Biden over him and then vote red straight down ballot.
Because if I'm remembering the statistics correctly, I'm pretty sure 7% of Republicans voted for Biden in 2020.
Which is a sizable amount.
It's a lot.
But that doesn't translate to 7% of Republicans becoming Democrats. And I feel the Democratic leadership vastly overestimated their sway with this political demographic. And to be honest, they deserve it. I'm going to come out and say it right now. The Democrats deserve the losses that they got this week because of their complete and utter unwillingness to see the fact that they don't have the white middle class demographic like they think they do.
Well, I'm going to come out with a different perspective on this. Does it really hurt them to lose? I'm genuine about this. Does it hurt the Democratic politicians to be on the losing side?
Depends. The ones that are actually running, yes.
I mean,
absolutely.
The ones that are running, but the ones that are in power.
In my opinion, no. It doesn't help them because it allows them to do what they did during the Trump era, which was allowing them to build up some form of steam that they really, really overestimated that was going to come in 2020, was that if Republicans are in power and they do all the bad shit, Democrats get to come in and say, oh my God, this is so terrible. We would never do something like that. Don't you see how this is so terrible? Please vote us in because we will definitely make sure it doesn't become worse.
But does that really take much effort? Because
it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much effort for them to come out and say this is so terrible, vote us in because we won't make it worse, because the operative word here is making it worse. They didn't say we'll make it better. We just said we won't make it worse. Meaning they are just interested in stopping the bleeding, not healing the arm.
Because this is what this strategy leads to. It leads to something awful happening, them saying that they won't repeat those mistakes, them completely messing up and not bringing any traction into the political party whatsoever, thus demoralizing the base that we stand in, so that way we don't pull in votes. The other side completely taking power again, them doing something awful, and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat, and this continuous cycle is not sustainable at all.
Yeah.
And it only benefits the people who are a part of it.
It's not sustainable because we are now seeing, thanks to Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema, what that really breeds. It breeds Democrats who are just in the corporate lobby like their Republican counterparts, but they have become used to that they don't even want to become controlled opposition anymore. They just want to be there as some type of, not controlled opposition, but they're more just like there.
Because let's be honest here, is there anyone in the Senate who got in there because they want to help out people that live in, like, that they want to help their constituency? I can maybe name two.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders
and Ro Khanna.
Yeah,
and that's it. That's it.
I would say what's his name? Bald guy. He's black. He's light skinned. Ran for president. Cory Booker. I would say he does actually genuinely. He is, however, he is a lib, and he is, as ineffectual as libs come, but I do believe his heart is in the right place.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we're not here to downplay Democrats. We're here to downplay their strategy and how this is completely their fault.
Yeah, it is absolutely their fault, in my opinion. Like, they need to really, really take a page from the Republicans, and they need to run candidates that light fire under people's asses.
I mean, for example, like 2018, AOC was a massive upset. I think she upset, was it like the third highest sitting member of the House or something like that?
Something like that, but you have to remember, that wasn't from the Democratic establishment. She was an upset, and that means she's an outlier. She was not, part of the general trend.
Well, she has established a new trend where more people like her are coming in, because, I mean, people like her, like Justice Dems, they multiplied. I think they doubled in 2020.
Which is good, but it's incremental, which is good. Incremental steps are good, but it doesn't cut to the real issue, which is that the party leadership of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden, they are not strategizing to run good candidates down ballot.
And I see what you're saying. There's like an incremental solution is good, but leadership itself needs to take action now. I think that's what you're trying to
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Because for as much as we rail about conservatives and how terrible they are and how they are terrible for politics, they are geniuses at political strategy. They have strategies that they've been running for 50 years, and they're still out here winning. Why? Because they know what to do. If someone's not working, get them out of there. We'll put someone new. We'll put someone that will be more inflammatory, that will light the fire under conservative asses, get independents to feel that fire, and have the independents run to them. That's what conservatives do, and Democrats fail constantly. And it is infuriating to see this. We are now really, really at a point where we are seeing fascism become more and more a politically viable option in American politics, and the Democrats do nothing to actually truly fight it back. They do not run the wall-to-wall propaganda showing why this is terrible. They do not fight back against culture war issues in any meaningful way. They do not run discourse. They do not do anything to help their constituency in any meaningful way to galvanize them to come out and try and support them. They do nothing. All they do is rest on the laurels of whatever win they get and try to coast off of that like they're that A student in school that didn't study and is really just coasting off of natural intelligence before they hit the brick wall known as college. That's what they are, and it is terrible and it's laughable that they consider this a continually viable strategy when it is shown that they fail at every single angle when they could do better. They have the facts on their side. They have policy positions on their side that are actually good, that a majority of Americans actually agree with. But they don't do anything with it. They will sooner let these Republicans run circles around them with culture war issues all the goddamn time. And they don't do anything but just try to lazily rebuff these culture war issues instead of turning it on its head on Republicans. They don't do anything of the sort. And it's so frustrating to see it happen. Because we get some progressive agendas, like defunding the police in Minneapolis, and what do the Democrats do? They hightail it for the fucking hills, running away from an actual progressive policy and backing it. While yes, I do understand though that defunding the police was not a necessarily good progressive strategy because in Black communities they do not want to defund the police because the police is really one of the only agencies that they have to protect them from the encroach of crime. The fact that Democrats didn't even try to entertain potentially communicating alternatives to defunding the police, but doing something to get reform really does show just how much they are allergic to good political strategy.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add to that, honestly.
It's so frustrating seeing this for years. I have been watching the Democratic Party since I've been 8 years old. I've been following politics since I've been 8 years old. And I've seen this strategy by the Democrats since I was 8. And it has not changed at all. This happened in the Obama era. We were winning. We were on top. We had the world and we squandered it. We did nothing. Obama did not get anything done like he promised to do because the Democrats continue to do the same thing, which is squander every advantage they get. They let the Republicans nickel and dime them down over and over until the Republicans become just as big as they do, and the Republicans turn around and bitch slap them to the ground and then stomp on them. And they just let it happen. Why? Why do they let this happen? Because they make money. The party leadership makes money off of being controlled opposition, and because they are a capitalist institution, meaning that they do not actually care for lower class and working class people, and so class consciousness is completely antithetical to what they achieve. So they purposely kneecap themselves so they don't achieve much political power because it knows that it would ensure more progressive people to join the political party and advocate for change, which would then run contrary to their corporate masters. That is why it's happening. And I know it's happening, and I've known it's been happening, but it's still frustrating to see it happen in real time.
Yeah.
I was hopeful for these midterms. I had optimism the midterms wouldn't go too bad. But this is really opening my eyes to the fact that we are in trouble. I'm not trying to be doomer here because doomer politics are not good, they are not productive, and they don't do anything to fix it. I'm not trying to be doomer here.
Yeah, we specifically advocated to not be doomer last episode, but
So
we need to just...
we need to be real, though, about the Democrats.
They are pretty much just controlled opposition. That's all that they stand for.
Exactly.
The only thing that they know how to do is lose.
Yeah.
Because so many times, like, to bring up your previous point, Obama was supposed to be the hope and change of America. He was supposed to make America better. And we got Obamacare. We got an extension for healthcare for children staying with their parents. What else did we get? We got nothing.
We got drone pilots murdering Yemenis children in mass.
Yeah, and who gets blamed for that the most? Obama does, even though Trump did it more.
But the fact that Obama even allowed it to happen in the first place just goes to show how the Democrats don't do anything truly progressive. And when they do, you have to drag them kicking and screaming to do it,
and I mean,
like with gay marriage.
God, to think that only because when did that get
2015?
legalized? Jesus Christ, what has taken them so long? That could not have been 2015.
It was 2015 was when that Supreme Court decision came through, and that is when Democrats were like, oh, it's now fully okay to be pro-gay. That means right now, because the Supreme Court made it legal, that meant the corporations were like, well, if the Supreme Court says it is, well, we'll start rolling out the rainbow logos every June to put on Twitter. And the Democrats were like, "Idy-ho, okay, gay people, you're all good. Sorry for not defending you for the past fucking 100 years. But that's water under the bridge now, right?
There's that. I'm coming at this as a straight person. That is absolutely infuriating to hear.
Yeah.
To hear that only recently got legalized.
Yeah, I mean,
6 years ago in the age of the United States, that is laughable.
Yeah,
that is absolutely laughable. That the greatest country on earth only legalized gay marriage 6 years ago.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's still kind of one of the more progressive aspects of America compared to the rest of the world, which says something about the world. But what I really want from the Democrats, and I feel that when I say this, I'm not really talking to the Democratic establishment because they obviously won't listen to me. I'm talking to the general liberal, independent, or even conservative voter that wants to see change. If you want to see change, you will get it through the Democratic Party. But you need to be able to build your own coalition from the ground up. And you need to use that coalition to gain power politically in your own local area first. Once you have done that, look for like-minded individuals within positions of power like you. Build coalitions across the country. And then together, work and fund each other up to the top. That is truly how we'll get the Democrats to know what we want and where we stand, because relying on them to funnel in candidates has clearly shown to be an absolute failure, because they do not bring in real candidates that actually inspire people.
People really underestimate how much power local elections truly have. Because if you can completely liberalize an entire county, that's still a lot.
Here's the thing. The Republicans have been doing this since the 50s. They've been doing this since the 50s. They knew the power of local elections because they had smart political acumen on their side. Democrats have the same resources, yet they don't use it. Well, I'm saying, you know what? We'll have to force them to use it. We need to, as the average common Americans that want to see true progressive change, we need to be the ones that step up. We can no longer trust the Democratic Party to field us good candidates. So we need to become the candidates. And that doesn't necessarily mean you just have to run for office. That just means becoming more of an activist. Whether it means going to a bit more protest, or going to more city council meetings and speaking your mind, emailing your senators more, or hell, doing what we do and creating a podcast and shouting into the void to however many viewers, how minuscule they may be now, because who knows where it could be in a couple years. What we need right now is for the average common American to stand up and fight for ourselves, because the Democratic Party is not doing it. We need to make the Democratic Party the progressive party that we want to see them be. Because sitting back and screaming at them on a podcast or yelling at them through quote tweets on Twitter isn't it. We need to do actual praxis. We need to support each other in our fight for better working rights, racial equality, gender equality, sexual liberation, anti-capitalism, or not even anti-capitalism, but just better progressive elements of capitalism, and other things like more maternity leave and paternity leave, finally decoupling insurance from your job and allowing everyone to have affordable, not just affordable healthcare, but affordable medical treatment. We need to get the pharmaceutical industry to stop making prescription medication so goddamn expensive because people's lives are on the line. And as we know, people will pay anything to survive. And we need to make it as affordable as we can so more people survive. We need to make those changes happen ourselves. The Democratic establishment has proven that they don't want to do it because they're in the pocket of these corporations. So we need to make them do it. We need to support each other. And so I'm saying this now, that if you have any plans or any ideas of potentially doing something political, whether it's running for political office, writing a letter, whether it's going to your city councilman or wherever, do it. You have nothing to lose. You should do it. And because who knows where you'll end up from trying.
And you never realize how much political power a single citizen has until you get the ball rolling.
Exactly. One vote in a sea of millions sounds minuscule. But that one vote is one person, and that one person has infinite reach.
Some political elections nearly win on like 100 votes. That is important, that those small elections are won by the right people.
And I would say, don't just focus on elections either, because political power doesn't just come from the elections. It comes from the people that talk about the elections, the people that talk about the policy, the media sphere surrounding politics is what also counts as political power. Yeah. So don't just focus on, I'm just but one vote in a sea of millions, because you're more than that.
Though if you do listen to this podcast, you are legally required to vote.
Yes.
That is a legal requirement to listen to this podcast. You have to vote.
Yes, please vote. Please, for the love of God, please vote. But don't just see political participation as just voting. Because while you can see yourself as 1 in a million votes, you are also one person amongst millions. And you have your own independent relationships with people that no one else has. And those relationships can translate into a movement that only you and your skills can bring to the table, because your unique relationships with people and how they will affect other people and their relationships with other people and so on and so forth, that is what allows for a political movement to happen. That is what will allow us to see political change in this Democratic Party that has become all too accustomed to being controlled opposition. We need to cause the upsets within the party. We need to primary the establishment when politically tactical, but we do need to primary them. We need to actually show out even more in force when we vote, and vote for people that aren't just establishment, but vote for people that are pushing the envelope in the right direction. That doesn't mean vote for anyone that rails against the Democratic Party. Be smart about it. If they have a true political strategy that is actually viable, which is entirely up to you doing your own political research, however that may be, to determining that fact, you should do it and vote for them. That's what we need, more than anything. So this is not a segment that will end on doomerism. This is a segment that will hopefully give you a high on hopium in believing that we can turn it around. Yes, the Democrats suck now, but they don't have to suck forever, because they're old people. They will be supplanted by new people, and we should be those new people that come in and hopefully make this country better.
Yeah, we here are completely anti-doomer, and we do want to emphasize that that is the way to Republicans winning.
Yes.
Because the more we're doomer, the less we go out to vote. And the less we vote, the less we get, or not even vote, like Shiny said, the more that we're politically active, the less that we're politically active, the more that we let room for Republicans to win.
Yeah. And in my opinion, this isn't just about Republicans winning, because not all Republicans are like the terrible people that we talk about on this podcast. What we're really trying to stop is the wave of conservatives that care for no one. They do not care for their constituents, they do not care for general humanity, and they do not care for democracy. They care about power and money, nothing more. That's all they care about. Those are the people that are trying to run this country. They are the ones that sow division amongst political lines. They are the ones that sow division amongst class lines, racial lines, so on and so forth. Those are the true people that we need to be working against. And so I posit this to everyone: Democrat, Republican, progressive, whatever. Be the change that you want to see. The current status quo is broken and has been broken for decades. And we've been screaming into the void for decades saying that it's broken. But now more than ever, we need to do something to change that. And to change that requires us as people to become more active. Because once we all become more active political agents, we will start to see the change that we want to see. And when you see that change, you'll realize how much easier your life has become. And how, if you hadn't, and how when you weren't participating, you realize just how little control you felt over your life. But when you actually bring real political power to the table, to the policies that you want to see happen, you realize just how much better your life is. And so that's what we want to end this podcast episode by saying, is reclaim that power. And know that while your life may be shit now, it doesn't have to be shit, because there's always a way to change it. And it's not something that can always be done by yourself. It can be done with others. And to fix it with others, we need to coalition build.
Well, as much as I enjoyed having a whole hour having a screaming match with Republicans that aren't listening, I think that was a really good discussion about politics that happened. I think
Yeah,
we should definitely end the stream there. It's a
yeah.
very good 2.5 hour